Haiku poet Dan Curtis captures life's moments with a contemplative yet natural ease. There's an attentiveness in each poem, write the editors of the haiku anthology A New Resonance 14. He has a way of noticing the world, not as an outsider, but as someone fully immersed in its rhythms. Whether watching waves roll in, or finding a weather report in the bloom of forsythia, the poet's voice lingers in the small details, making them feel expansive. Of the 15 haiku that Dan has in the wonderful anthology published by Red Moon Press, one of my favorites is the following one-line haiku. Binge watching, the waves roll in. On the surface, and after a first reading, this haiku presents perhaps as a slightly humorous, one-punch poetic critique and antidote to our ever-connected, digitally addicted culture. But subsequent readings reveal added depths and dimensions that keep me watching for the next wave of insight. It's one of those haiku that keeps rewarding the reader who lingers with it. Join me for a haiku walk, a ginko. Inspired by Dan's haiku, I know just the place to walk to while reflecting on his poem. It's where I go when I need to unplug, recharge, and, as Blake implies, connect with the transcendent unity found in nature. As we saunter together, and as you hear my conversation about this haiku with Dan Curtis himself, jot down any responses you might have, a haiku of your own, an insight perhaps, or a thought or meditation that you'd like to share in the comments. Your participation in this ginko enriches all of us. So find a quiet place, open a fresh page in your notebook, uncap a favorite pen, and let's begin. As I read Dan's haiku, take a moment to make note of a word or a phrase that strikes you, gives you pause for thought, compels you to dig deeper. Binge watching, the waves roll in.
All drivers and vehicle passengers, please return to your vehicle and head to the main target.
Binge is such an interesting word, and one I have seen little of in the haiku canon. Fresh words like this in a short poem, and as the first word of this haiku, act as a powerful hook to draw me in, to pause, and give the poem full indulgence. Speaking of indulgence, the word binge connotes a kind of throwing caution to the wind. One thinks of university students binge drinking after final exams, or binge eating favorite dishes while we're on holiday, or, less healthily, while struggling with anxiety or depression. Binge watching, usually television, streamed movies, or scrolling social media, is admittedly addicting. The waves of dopamine hitting with each fantastical blue-lit scene flashing before our eyes. Dan's haiku brings all of this to mind, but more importantly, it invites me outside to reconnect with the forest path, the touch of rain on my skin, the smell of springtime, and the crashing ocean on the edge of a continent. Long before language, the S of the river, Annette Makino.
The light is fading fast. From this old town we gotta go. Our bags are packed, so what we waiting for? There's no point in delaying what we both already know. Escape this time with me. Escape this time with me. We could rent a room and watch the stars dance round the moon. Fall asleep to the sounds of the sea. With you right by my side, it's such a sweet life. Escape this time with me. Escape this time with me. Nowhere else to be. Escape this time with me.
How often do you embrace nature's call to come away for a while? To listen to the wash of waves on a seashore, watch the wind in a wheat field, marvel at an approaching thunderstorm, or luxuriate in a painted sky at sunset. Instead of waiting to binge on nature, how can I become more attentive to it to reap the benefits in my daily life? Poetry certainly helps. Reading haiku connects me to a myriad of seasonal scenes in nature. But there's nothing like getting outside on a daily, if not hourly, basis. With a notebook in hand, even the shortest walks have resulted in me gaining a more focused attention and anticipation of nature's haiku moments. Binge watching. The waves roll in. For this final reading of Dan's poem, listen for any thoughts, intuitions, or inclinations from his haiku or from our ginko walk together that you might include in a poem, reflection, or interpretation of your own. Binge watching the waves roll in.
Looking back, as far as I remember, the voices in my head have been pounding, but they can't reach the outside world. They try so hard but choke in the moment. Will I always be alone? Why can't I change my world? Oh, that kid I knew from far, watching his life burn. Look at the people smile. Why can't I? Why don't the tables turn? Every step, the earth begins to sunder. I'm sinking with the weight I'm carrying, and the sun bringing in the new day always lets me down. Oh, will I ever know? Will I always be alone? Why can't I change my world? Oh, that kid I knew from far, watching his life burn. Look at the people smile. Why can't I? Why don't the tables turn? Why don't the tables turn? Why don't the tables turn? Oh, will I ever know? Will I always be alone? Why can't I change my? Oh, that kid I knew from far, watching his life burn. Look at the people smile. Why can't I? Why can't I? Will I ever know? Will I always be? Why can't I change my world? Oh.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Peter.
I took your haiku binge watching out for a walk with our viewers. Before we discuss this wonderfully evocative haiku, would you be so kind as to read it for us?
Yeah, certainly. Binge watching, the waves roll in. Binge watching, the waves roll in.
Thank you. So nice. It strikes me, Dan, that this poem could probably only be written using the haiku form, at least in an effective way. What is it that draws you to the haiku form?
I think basically I'm drawn in life to simplicity. There's an expression amongst the Thai forest Buddhist monks, being satisfied with less. And it's kind of my motto, being satisfied with less in my life. You know, less food, less clothing, less stuff, just simplifying. And so in a way, haiku fits into that very nicely because, of course, it's paring things down, you know, taking an experience and simplifying it, if you like. You know, throwing off all the chaff and junk around it so you get the essence of a moment or an experience. I like the challenge of trying to capture a moment in just a few words. It's interesting. I'm more a visual person because I was a documentary filmmaker, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I find visually I'm more literate than I am actually as a writer. I find writing more of a challenge. And so that's why I find it, another reason I've been drawn to haiku, because I could have done a lot just with photography. But I like the fact that for me, it's a bit tough. It's like, this is hard. You know, I see something and I think, oh, well, a photograph, I could take that and there'd be no problem. But haiku challenge. So I like the challenge. And I like the way that haiku the best of them, and sometimes I succeed, not always, but they have layers to them. So you can read them and then you think, oh, actually there's something more here. And then you see, this could also mean something else. So I love that quality.
Absolutely. So as mentioned, this haiku works wonderfully well as a one-liner, as a monoku. Those new to haiku or who might think that a haiku should conform to a 5-7-5 syllable 3-line structure, why did you choose to use a one-line structure for this haiku binge watching?
Well, I think one of the reasons is, again, it's a challenge. I like challenges. And it's not always easy to write a one-liner, at least I find, because I'm used to doing a kind of standard 3-line format. The other thing is that It's true you can use concrete formatting in a 3-line or 4-line or whatever haiku. But the thing I like about the 1-line is that it lends itself to subject matter that may be, in fact, ties in with that. So if it's about railroad tracks or roads, well, a 1-liner can be quite effective. Mm-hmm. Similarly, if you're talking about a beach or a shoreline, you're looking along a long stretch of beach, or you're watching a long line of waves roll in, there's a kind of linear quality to it. So I think that I was drawn to that as part of it. The other thing which is really neat, I think, depending on where you cut the monoku, you can get several meanings, sometimes 2, 3, or 4, depending on where you want to cut it. So, for example, if you read it just straight through, binge watching the waves roll in, it sounds a bit like you're sitting on a beach somewhere just watching waves roll in. If you say binge watching the waves roll in, it could be that you're at the beach but in a cabin, glued to your monitor or TV set or digital device, watching something, binge watching, and meanwhile outside, and is this wonderful scene of waves rolling in. And I was drawn, to this in a sense because I see all the time people in parks, down by the seashore, walking woodland trails, glued to their smartphones, kind of looking in, and I think, what's wrong with this picture?
Exactly.
So put your phone away.
When we talked earlier about a good haiku having multiple layers, another reading came to me recently with this haiku that binge watching the waves roll in could also be like I'm seeing people on their phones and they're just scrolling incessantly. And the content is like these waves, these digital waves that just keep rolling in, and got me thinking of, the effects of blue light on our vision, perhaps our mood, and this idea of doom scrolling, this incessant waves of doom coming in and making us feel insecure or anxious. And so there's a kind of a negative reading to the poem as well, perhaps.
This is the other thing I like about haiku. You said, why am I attracted to the haiku format? And you pointed to one of them, and that is that, but good haiku allows room for the reader. So I've never thought of your interpretation. In fact, that wasn't where I was coming from. Right. But when you talk about it, I think it's absolutely true. You could, in fact, and it would be a perfectly fine interpretation to see it as the waves of doom and gloom and anxiety and, all that sort of washing in on you from the scrolling. So, yeah, thank you.
What do you feel are the benefits of focused attention to nature, like watching the waves roll in on a seashore?
Well, I think one of the benefits is that it shifts the mind from being very agitated by all of the stuff, the assault of everything you've just been talking about, and slowing down to examine the details in nature. It changes the channel from all news all the time to the fireplace channel. And the fireplace channel is very nice. In the winter, you just sit there and watch, flames burning. So it does something similar. And it also, for me anyways, in a very experiential way, reminds us that we're all part of nature, that we're born, we age, we get sick, and we die. We're not unique. We can look around us in nature and see all that happening all the time. And in some ways, I find that rather comforting. I'm now old and to some extent sick, and not so long from now, we'll die. This is not horrible. This is just part of the natural cycle. So I think that's the other thing, that going out into nature and actually being part of it makes you realize that this is okay. You're just part of this larger cycle. You're not something outside of it. You're not apart from it. You are part of it.
You mentioned that you spent many years as a documentary filmmaker. You no doubt honed your attentiveness to the small, simple, yet significant details of your subjects. How have those skills translated into your work as a poet?
Well, I think that one of the things that both documentary filmmaking and poetry requires is being in the right place at the right moment. I know in some of my documentaries that people would say, "How did you get that shot?" And I'd say, because I spent days, being there, waiting for something to happen.
Oh, wow.
Many hours of boredom, and then there was the shot. It wasn't that I brilliantly created the shot.
Right.
And I think that's true too for haiku, that you can wander by the same tree or rock or grocery store day in, day out, and then something happens because you're waiting and you're watching. Something happens, you say, there's a moment.
Yes.
To give you an example, I look out my study window on a little, across the street, sidewalk in a little park, and it was in the spring, and there was kind of a bit drizzly, and there was a mother with a big umbrella, and behind her was her little girl with a little umbrella walking along. But the thing that stood out were these bright pink gum boots she had on.
Lovely.
And so, it was, I look out this window all the time, but it created, I wrote a haiku that went, spring blooms, the bright pink of a child's gum boots.
Oh, that's so nice.
It sort of came right there.
Sure.
Because I was looking out the window. It wasn't something that I sort of thought, let's see, I need to write a spring haiku about, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were prepared in the sense of being attentive to that moment.
Yeah. And I think the same thing with documentary filmmaking, that you have an intention to capture something, to get something. You have a bit of a script, you have to go and get, and so you're waiting for something to happen often. So that's part of it. The other thing that I think where there's a similarity is that maybe people don't think about it this way, but I think haiku are miniature stories. There's a narrative there. There's a little story. And in documentary filmmaking, the best documentaries are ones that tell a story well. They have a beginning, middle, end. There's some drama. There's surprises. They're entertaining. Even the hardest of them are entertaining. And I think that I bring. I think that's part of what I bring. Also, there's you shoot thousands of hours of video to get 5 minutes, and that's not an exaggeration. So the same thing with haiku. I have pages sometimes of scribbles and scrawls before I get even close to something that seems like, oh, that's that I think is getting close to the kernel of what I saw or experienced or whatever. So I think there's a similarity. And then when I read my haiku, does it have some spark? Does it have a story? Is there something that will catch someone and they'll create a story in their mind around it,
So Dan, where are some of your favorite beaches to binge watch the waves on Vancouver Island where you live?
I like beaches that are reasonably isolated, that don't have too many people on them. And one of my favorite beaches, which I've gone to almost yearly until the last couple of years, has been Long Beach out on the west coast of the island.
Spectacular.
Because you can still find a spot there and sit and not be surrounded by people or have too many people walking by. So you can just be there with yourself and miles of sand and ocean and waves coming in, and it's lovely.
It really is a gem of a place for all of the reasons that you mentioned. Well, Dan, I can't thank you enough for joining me to discuss your gem of a haiku, Binge Watching, for sharing your thoughts on writing and editing poetry, storytelling, and paying attention to all the lovely moments that life brings our way.
Well, thank you, Peter. It's been a pleasure.
Dear friends, thanks so much for joining me on this haiku walk. If you enjoyed this episode of Ginko, please do like the video and maybe share it with a friend or two. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time, I'm your Ginko host, Peter, inviting you to continue to walk, write, and repeat.